Okay, it's been a while. I apologize. Life has gotten a little bit crazy, but I wanted to update everybody on sort of some UCS news and make some announcements and talk about a few new things that have developed in the last year or so since UCS was released. So, in this video, I'm going to cover a bunch of topics and I'll try to be as brief as I can. So, the first thing I want to announce is that we're going to make a slight update to the list. By the time this video is posted, this list should be live in all the usual places. We'll try to get it in the hands of all the developers so they have a jump start on getting the list included into different apps, Soundminer, Basehead, Soundly, Snapper, some different tools. So hopefully by the time this is released, it'll be already out there. But I just wanted to go over a little bit why we're updating this and what we've sort of changed. Now, it's a pretty minor update. We're calling this 8.1. And basically, we're going to add 25 new subcategories. So, no new top level categories. That stays the same. But over the last year, it's become clear that there are a few subcategory additions that would be useful to a lot of users. When we originally made the list, we tried to be as inclusive as we could. We tried to think of a home for sort of everything. But of course, there were things that slipped through the cracks or things that have come up that seemed like worthwhile additions. So, I'm going to make a separate video explaining what each new category is meant to do. So I won't cover that here, but in green here, you can see these are the new subcategories. We have quite a few for ambience. We've added some interior categories for vehicles, aircraft, trains, things like that. A couple designed extensions, paper gets a couple new subcategories. So nothing major, but just things that have come up that people have asked for. So in the published list, it'll sort of look like this. The new categories will be highlighted in green, just so that if you want to have a look at the list, you can kind of see what's new, see the explanations for what that new subcategory is meant to be. We have already translated all of these into the various languages, so they'll all be included when we release this. And also, one thing that's new that Justin has been working on is actually translating all the synonyms, which is kind of cool. Which means, at least in SoundMiner for now, and anybody else who wants to utilize it will publish them. You could search for a synonym in your native language if it's one of the languages that we've translated into. So that's pretty cool. And that will be in another list that holds all the translations. We'll also have a new synonyms column for each language where those will be translated. So one form that we had, or one spreadsheet we had up for a while, was sort of a vendor submission sheet where people could sort of update if they were using UCS and they wanted people to know. Um, and we haven't really done a lot with that information, and still we haven't, but we might. So what I've changed a little bit here is that I've basically created a vendor submission form that's accessible there through the UCS Google Drive, and I'll post links for all of the things in the comments down below that I'm going to talk about here too. So there'll be links below to this spreadsheet. If you're a vendor and you want to basically claim a vendor abbreviation that might be used down the line, this is how you would do it. You could also put a web page in there, a contact person, email address, and things like that, the name of your company. And right now, the spreadsheet looks sort of like this. These are some of the names of people who have sort of laid claim to abbreviations. And the important thing here is this thing called vendor abbreviation, really, because that's something that could be used later to use in a lookup table to basically do some conversions of the full name of a company back and forth to the abbreviations in the file names and things like that. So if you're a vendor and you're using UCS and you want to go ahead and enter that information here, it won't hurt anything. It sort of shows some of the people who are using UCS. And you can just enter that, and eventually we might do something with that vendor abbreviation and make it more available in certain programs. I want to talk a little bit about some of the tools for UCS. They'll all get updated with this new list as well. Keyboard Maestro macros, audio category clipper, audio category clippers here in the background. And there's a new tool called the UCS Renamer. I'm going to make a separate video explaining exactly how that works. And I'm going to make updated videos for probably all the tools as well, the Keyboard Maestro macros and audio category clipper, just to go over it one more time and include into this probably playlist for this UCS 2021, just an updated video on how these things work. The Renamer app, I'll just give you an idea, is basically used to rename a set of files with a CSV list of alternate file names. And I'll go over that in much more detail in the video that I make on that. Same thing with the Keyboard Maestro macros. I've updated them all to the 8.1 list. And I'm going to bundle them a little bit differently than they're currently up on the homepage. So you'll just get a single download that will come with all of these. There are 4 macros for audio category clipper, a couple for the Finder, 4 different sort of flavors for Pro Tools, and 1 for Soundminer. And I'll explain in a video that I'm going to make, again, exactly how you use these. If you wanted to modify them in any way, how you would do that, and exactly how we use them. So, but by the time we release this list, these tools will all be updated, and they should be all up on the Google Drive. And again, the category list that's up on the Google Drive, I've updated as well to include the new subcategories. So if you needed an empty set of folders that match the UCS 8.1 list, they'll be up there as well. So just to talk about a few of the apps that are using UCS and sort of some of the things that are new. Talk about Soundminer first. Before, you could always assign categories in Soundminer, and not just categories, but cat ID, category, subcategory, category full, by right clicking, and you'd have a drop down menu. You could also do it through the workflows and different things, but there's a couple new ways in Soundminer to assign categories and all of the associated information. And so I just want to show them to you really quickly, just screenshots of them. I won't go into too much more detail, but the newest versions of Soundminer have an autocomplete sort of set of preferences now. And if you started to type in, for example, category full, if you just went into edit mode and started to type a keyword like ambience, you'll see that you'll get this nice drop down list that shows you an explanation for each of the categories. And it also even shows you the synonyms listed. And you can search the synonyms by doing this as well. So one clever thing here is that, if you typed in tiger, it would immediately drop down and say, animals, wildcats for you, because it would know that that's the synonym list for that category. So this is one way to do it, a new way in Soundminer. The other way is to use something called the UCS tagger searcher. And this allows you to basically drop down any of the categories, see all the subcategories. And if you had a file selected in Soundminer, a single file or a group of them, simply clicking on one of these subcategories would assign all of the relevant information. You can also search again at the top. There's a search bar, and it will search the synonyms as well. And I think eventually we'll search those synonyms in the foreign languages too. That's not quite in there yet, but I'm pretty sure that that's going to be coming. So this is just a new way to do that. Just a reminder too that there are a bunch of workflow sequences up on the Google Drive, some of which might be really useful. This is one that I wrote with the help of Justin with the little regex in it. But let's say you wanted to reassign some sounds that have cat IDs at the beginning of the file name. Maybe you want to use one of the new categories. Let's say you want to go through your library, find all your parks, and assign them to the new ambience park category. Well, what this workflow will do is after you did that using one of the other methods, like let's say you went through here and you assigned them, now this little workflow will basically remove the existing cat ID from your file name and simply replace it with the current cat ID. So it's one button press, you could basically change the file name to the new cat ID. There's a bunch of sequences like this that are up on the Google Drive with an explanation of what they do that anybody can download and import into Soundminer. So Snapper is a really cool program from Audioease, who make Altiverb and Speakerphone and Indoor and all these different programs. And it's sort of a Finder extension that allows you to, while you've highlighted a sound in the Finder, it'll pop up this nice little window down below that sort of lets you work with the file, make snippets, and import it in different programs. But new to the latest version of Snapper is that it can read UCS metadata. And you can see there in the bottom left of the screen that it sort of shows you some of that metadata and the synonyms. It reads all of these things as well. So it's quite a useful thing. So that's new in Snapper, has some UCS integration into it. Aaron Cendan, who is really active on the field supporting Slack channel and really quite a brilliant individual, has a Reaper renaming tool, and it's going to be updated also with a new UCS list. I'll post again down below links to all of this. But he's using some very clever functions of Reaper and a web interface to basically allow you to rename lots of things in Reaper using UCS and searching synonyms and searching different things. And so there's information here about that, and I'll post the link down below if you're interested, if you're a Reaper user and you want to use UCS in Reaper. Soundly is another database program, and Soundly has implemented some UCS implementation as well. There's actually a video showing how their implementation works on our Google Drive. It's also on YouTube, and I'll post a link below. But yeah, Soundly has basically now integrated UCS into the program as well. And Basehead has also integrated some UCS functionality. I'm not a Basehead user. I can't explain exactly how they did it, but there is a blog post. I'll link that below. And they have forums and things I'm sure you could get help. But this post that I'll link below, I think, explains pretty well what they've done. And we'll make sure they have the 8.1 list as well so that they can update their list in the program. Quite a few people have been starting to use UCS. Obviously, lots of big name vendors. Pro Sound Effects has converted several 100,000 of their sounds into the system. And just as an example, if you go to something like a sound effect and you search UCS, you'll get 12 pages of libraries that all have UCS metadata embedded in them. Marcel over at Free to Use Sounds, who's traveling around the world recording, of which I'm quite envious, has posted a video on YouTube sort of explaining how he's doing metadata for his files, and he talks a bit about UCS in that as well. I'll link to that below. It's an interesting discussion of sort of how he's choosing to use UCS and in his metadata. It might be interesting to some of you. So I'll post that down below. And again, if you're totally new to UCS, the best place to sort of come and find more help is over on our Slack channel. And there's a link to this on our homepage, which is universalcategorysystem.com. And that's where the links to everything are. The Facebook page, which I'm not so active on anymore, but the Slack channel is really the best place to come and find help, make suggestions, ask for ideas on what category something might exist in, things like that. And so that's really about it. Over the last year, we've seen UCS grow quite a bit. Lots of people have adopted it, and even some people who were pretty reluctant at the beginning are sort of coming around and adopting it. Again, the entire idea behind this was to try to provide something that would be useful to the sound community, not to try to strong arm anybody into using this system. That was never our intention. We wanted to make something that was completely open source. Anybody's allowed to take what we've done and implement it into their program, use it however they see fit. We ask only that they don't modify the category list, because that's sort of the core of what we were trying to do. There's been a lot of discussion about things like file names, and that's where something like the UCS renamer comes in. So if you're interested in that, have a look at that other video. Have a look at the video on the Keyboard Maestro macros and Audio Category Clipper, and check out Aaron Cendan's Reaper implementation. There's a lot of tools out there to help use this system and to make it sort of less cumbersome if you're interested in that. And as always, come find us over on the Slack channel if you need any help. We're always happy to help. I've been helping quite a few of the really big name vendors recently sort of look at ways to implement their back catalogs and convert sort of file names and offer up new file names and, reshape the metadata. And it's a big challenge, for a lot of these vendors have 10 to 20,000 to 70, 80,000 sounds, some of them. So, some of this will take time, but it makes me happy that the system seems to be sort of finding a home and finding use, and people are using it. And that was, the intention was to give some framework, especially for people who are starting out and vendors who are starting out, to offer up some structure. That's all we ever tried to do with this system. So come find us if you need help, and check out some of the other videos that I'm going to post in this playlist as well, going over again some of the current state of some of the tools, and a look at the new subcategories and the list itself. And thanks for watching.